When my son and I returned from our trip, his room was empty. "Where are my son's things?" I asked. My sister-in-law laughed. "I took the room. I sold everything and got a great price." My wife chuckled. "My sister is pregnant. It's only fair, right?" My son clung to me, crying. I said nothing. I just walked away. But later, my sister-in-law's smile disappeared. She had no idea what I had done. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. The truck smelled like lake water and cold coffee. Daniel Mercer drove with one hand on the wheel, and the window cracked 2 inches, letting the October air cut through the warmth of the heater. 4 days of fishing had left a fine layer of grit on everything. Sand in the floor mats, dried mud on the tackle box, a faint smell of fish and pine that would take a week to wash out. In the passenger seat, his 11-year-old son slept with his cheek pressed against the seatbelt. Jerry had caught his first largemouth bass on the second morning. 3 pounds, maybe a little less. He had held it up with both hands and shouted so loud that a heron lifted off the far bank. Daniel had taken 20 photos. He had already picked the one he wanted to print. That was the plan for tonight. Print the photo, frame it, hang it above Jerry's desk, right next to the old picture of Jerry and his grandfather standing on a wooden dock with matching fishing hats. Daniel turned onto their street a little after 6. The porch light was on. Jessica's car sat in the driveway. Behind it, parked crooked and half on the grass, sat Ashley's silver sedan. Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. He told himself it meant nothing. Ashley visited. Ashley always visited. She was 7 months pregnant now, and pregnant people needed help, and his wife was the sort of person who gave help before anyone asked for it. He parked. He shook Jerry's shoulder. "Hey, we're home." Jerry woke slowly, blinking at the porch light, his hair flattened on one side. "Can I show Mom the fish picture?" "Show her all of them." They carried the gear up the driveway. The cooler banged against Daniel's leg. Jerry ran ahead with his backpack hanging off one shoulder, sneakers slapping the concrete, and the front door opened before he reached it. Jessica stood in the doorway. Daniel noticed it immediately. The way she held the door, the way her eyes moved past Jerry and landed on him, then dropped. "You're early," she said. Traffic was light. She stepped back to let them in. The house smelled like cinnamon and something baked. There were shopping bags stacked against the wall in the hallway. Not grocery bags. Big ones from a baby store, with tissue paper spilling out the top. Jerry was already halfway down the hall. "Jerry," Jessica said. "Wait." He did not wait. He was 11 and full of a 4-day trip, and he wanted his own room. Daniel set the cooler down. He heard the bedroom door open. Then nothing. That was what he would remember later. Not shouting, not crying, just the silence of a boy standing in a doorway, saying nothing at all. Daniel walked down the hall. Jerry stood frozen at the threshold, his backpack sliding slowly off his shoulder until it hit the floor. The room was gone. Not damaged. Not messy. Gone. The bed had been removed. The blue rug was gone. The desk with the scratch corner, the one Daniel had assembled on Jerry's 7th birthday while Jerry handed him screws one at a time, was not there. The bookshelf was empty and pushed against the far wall. The wall itself had been painted a soft yellow, and the paint smell still hung in the air, sharp and chemical. A white crib stood where the bed had been. A changing table stood where the desk used to be. There was a mobile hanging above the crib. Little gray elephants. It turned slowly in the air from the heating vent. Daniel's eyes went to the wall above the desk that was no longer there. The nail was still in the drywall. The photograph was not. Ashley stood by the closet, folding a tiny blanket. She looked up and smiled like a woman showing off a kitchen renovation. "What do you think? The yellow works, right? It's gender neutral." Daniel did not answer her. He looked at his son. Jerry's chin had started to shake. The boy was trying very hard to keep his face still, and failing, and trying again. Daniel felt something shift in his chest. Not heat, not rage. Something colder and much quieter. Like a door closing somewhere far back in a house. "Where are my son's things?" Ashley shrugged one shoulder and kept folding. "I moved them." "Where?" "I sold some." The rest are in storage. Daniel's jaw tightened. He kept his voice level. You sold my son's belongings. Ashley laughed. Actually laughed, a short, bright sound, as if he had made a joke and missed the timing. Daniel, he's 11. He doesn't need all that junk. Jerry spoke from behind him. His voice came out thin. That wasn't junk. Ashley rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. Both of you. Daniel turned around. Jessica stood at the end of the hallway with her arms folded across her stomach, holding herself the way she did when she already knew she had lost an argument she had not started yet. You knew, he said. She hesitated. Half a second. It was enough. I knew Ashley needed the room. That wasn't my question. Jessica let out a breath. Yes. Daniel looked at his wife of 12 years. He looked at the woman who had held Jerry's hand on his first day of kindergarten, who had cried at the school play, who had stayed up with him through every fever. You let her empty our son's bedroom. She's pregnant. So, she needs somewhere for the baby. Our son already lived there. Jessica's chin came up. Her voice got defensive, and defensive always came out louder. He's old enough to sleep somewhere else. He can use the office. There's a couch in there. A couch. We'll get a bed. Eventually. Daniel looked down at Jerry. The boy was crying, silently, without a sound, wiping his face fast with the heel of his hand because he did not want anyone to see it. Something in Daniel went very still. For 7 years he had been the reasonable one, the one who let things go, the one who told himself that a good man absorbs and does not escalate. He had built an entire marriage on the belief that if he stayed calm long enough, everyone else would eventually be fair. That belief died in that hallway, standing in front of a crib in his son's bedroom, watching an 11-year-old boy try to hide his face. He bent down and picked up Jerry's backpack. Come on. Jessica stepped forward. Where are you going? Out. Daniel. Her voice pitched higher. Don't make this bigger than it is. He looked at her. You already made it big. Ashley called something from the bedroom. Daniel did not hear it and did not care to. He put his hand on his son's shoulder and walked him out the front door, down the driveway, past the crooked silver sedan, and into the truck that still smelled like lake water. He did not slam the door. He closed it carefully, the way a man closes something he does not intend to open again. Daniel did not become angry because of one bedroom. The bedroom was just the last thing on a pile that had been growing for 7 years. He drove with both hands on the wheel and let his son sit in silence. Jerry stared out the passenger window at the passing streetlights, one hand pressed flat against the glass. Daniel did not fill the quiet with reassurance. He had learned early that Jerry needed a few minutes before he could talk. So Daniel drove and thought. Ashley Dawson had entered their marriage the way water enters a basement. Slowly, through cracks. Nobody notices until the floor is ruined. It started with money. $400 the first time for a car repair. Jessica handed it over and told Daniel afterward. Ashley was going to pay it back on the 15th. She did not pay it back on the 15th. She did not pay it back at all. When Daniel mentioned it, Jessica had looked at him like he had asked her to bill her own mother. She's struggling, Daniel. That became the script. If Ashley borrowed and did not return, she was struggling. If Ashley arrived 2 hours late to a dinner Jessica had spent all afternoon cooking, traffic was responsible. If Ashley told Jessica that her new haircut made her look tired, she was just being honest. And every single time, whenever Daniel objected, Jessica said the same 5 words. She's my sister, Daniel. That sentence had closed more conversations in his house than any door. Over 7 years, Ashley had borrowed money at least 11 times that Daniel knew about. She had stayed with him for 3 weeks after one breakup and 5 weeks after another. She had taken their second car for a weekend and returned it a month later with a cracked mirror and an empty tank. She had asked Jessica to cover her phone bill, her insurance, a deposit on an apartment she never moved into. She had criticized how Daniel raised his son, openly, at their own dinner table. Once, when Jerry was 9, Daniel had grounded him for a week over a lie about homework. That evening, Ashley had leaned toward Jerry in the kitchen, close enough that Daniel heard every word from the next room. Don't worry, honey. Your dad's just strict. He was probably raised mean. Daniel had walked in. Ashley had smiled. Jessica had changed the subject. He had tried everything a reasonable man tries. He had sat down with Ashley twice, calmly, with no accusations, and explained what a boundary was. She had nodded through both conversations and changed nothing. He had asked Jessica to agree on simple household rules. No overnight stays without both of them agreeing. No money without a conversation. No comments about Jerry's discipline in front of Jerry. Jessica had agreed to all of it. Then Ashley had cried on the phone about something, and every rule had evaporated inside a week. He had even offered to help Ashley find a place. He had offered to co-sign a lease once. She had told Jessica he was trying to get rid of her. Nothing worked, because Jessica always chose the same side, and it was never his. For months before the fishing trip, Daniel had tried one last time. It was late. They were in the kitchen. Jessica was rinsing a pan. "I feel like I'm married to you and your sister," he had said. Jessica had shut the water off. The silence in the room had changed temperature. "How dare you say that about my family? I'm talking about our marriage. You hate my sister?" "No. I hate what happens to our family every time she needs something." She had walked out of the kitchen and gone to bed without another word. In the morning she made pancakes and asked about his work schedule, and they both pretended the conversation had never happened. That was how they solved things. They did not solve them. They buried them and mowed over the spot. Daniel had stayed quiet after that. He told himself things could still improve. Jerry was happy. The bills were paid. Jessica still laughed at his jokes sometimes. He had told himself that a marriage does not have to be perfect to be worth keeping. He had been wrong, and he had known it for months, and he had not been willing to say it out loud. Now he was driving away from his own house with his son's backpack on the floor of the truck. At a red light, Jerry finally spoke. "Dad." "Yeah." "Did she sell Grandpa's picture?" Daniel's hands went tight on the wheel. He made himself relax them before he answered. "I don't know yet. It wasn't worth money." Jerry's voice cracked. "Why would she sell it? She probably didn't. It was probably packed with the rest." "You don't know that." Daniel looked at his son. He could have lied. It would have been easy and kind, and it would have lasted about 4 days. "No," he said. "I don't know that. But I'm going to find out. And whatever happened, I'm going to fix what can be fixed." Jerry wiped his face again. "Is Mom mad at me?" The question landed harder than anything Ashley had said. Daniel pulled into a parking lot, put the truck in park, and turned to face him fully. "Listen to me. What happened tonight is not about you. You did nothing wrong. Not one thing. But she let Aunt Ashley dash. That's on the adults. All of it. You understand me?" Jerry nodded, though he did not look convinced. Daniel put the truck in gear. He had spent 7 years teaching his son to be patient with difficult people, to turn the other cheek, to keep the peace. Sitting in that parking lot, he understood what he had actually been teaching him. He had been teaching his son that his own comfort came last. That love means accepting whatever gets handed to you. That when someone takes what is yours, the polite thing to do is smile and find somewhere else to sleep. He had raised his boy inside a lesson he never meant to give. That ended tonight. Daniel's father lived 20 minutes east, in a small brick house with a detached garage and a driveway that always needed sealing. Ray Mercer answered the door in a flannel shirt with reading glasses pushed up on his head. He was 73, thin as a fence post, and had not asked an unnecessary question in his life. He looked at Daniel's face, then at Jerry's. Then he opened the door wider. "There's chicken in the fridge. Plates are where they always are." That was it. No interrogation. Know what happened? Jerry ate 2 plates of cold chicken at the kitchen table and fell asleep on the couch before 8, still in his jacket. Ray put a blanket over him and came back to the kitchen, where Daniel sat with a glass of water he had not touched. "Room?" Ray asked. Daniel nodded once. "The sister?" "Yeah." Ray sat down across from him. The chair creaked. He folded his hands on the table, and for a while he said nothing. "You want my opinion, or you want quiet?" "Quiet." "All right." They sat in it. Outside, a dog barked twice and stopped. The refrigerator hummed. Daniel listened to his son breathing on the couch in the next room and felt his own pulse slowly come down. Then headlights swept across the kitchen window. Ray stood up. "I'll be in the garage." Jessica came up the walk fast. Daniel met her outside on the porch and pulled the door most of the way shut behind him, because Jerry was 10 feet away and had heard enough for one night. She started before she reached the steps. "You can't just take our son away." Her hair was pulled back too tight. Her eyes were red. She had been crying in the car, and she had put fresh makeup on in the driveway, and it had not helped. Daniel stayed where he was. "I took him somewhere he feels safe." "Oh, that's Dash." She stopped, pressed her lips together. "You're punishing me. That's what this is." "No." "Then what are you doing?" "Protecting him." Jessica crossed her arms. "From what?" "From his own house. From a woman who told him his things were junk while he was standing in the room she emptied." "She's pregnant, Daniel." "She needed the room. Do you understand what it's like to be 7 months pregnant with nowhere to put a baby? And you decided our son should pay for it. It's temporary. You sold his things." "I didn't sell anything. You allowed your sister to." Jessica's mouth opened, closed. She looked out at the street. The porch light buzzed. A moth kept hitting the bulb, over and over, the same soft tap each time. Daniel let the silence stretch until she had to fill it. "She said she was going to box it up," Jessica said finally. "That's what she told me. She said she'd box everything and put it in the garage." "When did she tell you that?" "Tuesday." "And when did you last look in that room before tonight?" Jessica did not answer. "Tuesday," Daniel said. "I was working. You walked past that door for 3 days. Don't do that. Don't cross-examine me on my own." Dash. She stopped again. Her voice dropped. "I didn't want to look. All right? I didn't want to see it, because I knew if I saw it I'd have to do something about it. And I didn't want to fight with her." There it was. The first honest sentence she had said all night. Daniel nodded slowly. "So instead you let it happen to Jerry. That's not fair." "It's exactly fair." Jessica's eyes filled. She turned away from him, then turned back. "You always do this. You always make everything so serious." Daniel laughed. It came out tired, with no humor anywhere near it. "I've spent 7 years making things smaller, so you wouldn't have to admit how serious they were. Every time. Every single time. The money, the car, the 5 weeks she lived in our den, the things she said to our kid at our own table. I shrank all of it down so you could keep telling yourself your family was fine." Jessica stared at him. She had never heard him list it before. He had never let himself. "This isn't about furniture anymore," he said. "Then what is it about?" "Respect. Respect." She shook her head, and her voice went hard and thin. "You want respect. Meanwhile, my sister has nothing. She's about to have a baby alone, and my husband wants a conversation about respect. Your sister has a mother, a father, a job she quit, and 2 people she's been draining for 7 years. What she doesn't have is a single consequence. You are so cold. I'm awake. There's a difference." Jessica wiped her face with the back of her wrist. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Quieter, sharper, aimed. "If you can't accept my family, maybe you're the problem." Daniel did not answer right away. He looked past her at the street, at the truck in the driveway with the fishing rod still in the bed, at the house where his son was asleep on an old couch because his own bed had been sold to a stranger. He thought about all the ways he could answer that. He could argue. He could list more. He could explain, one more time, in that patient voice he had used for years. He had used that voice for 7 years, and it had bought him nothing. "Maybe," he said, "or maybe I've finally accepted that I can't fix this." Jessica went very still. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done talking about it tonight. Daniel, Jerry stays here until his room is his again. Not a couch in the office. His room. His bed, his desk, his things." "That's not Dash." Her voice cracked. "She's already painted it. Then she can paint it back. You can't just decide, Dash. I just did." He said it without raising his voice at all, and that was what stopped her. In 12 years of marriage, she had heard him shout maybe 4 times. She had never once heard him sound like this. Jessica stood on the walkway with her keys in her fist. She looked at the door behind him, at the light in the front window, at the shape of her son under a blanket. "Can I see him? He's asleep." "Daniel," he cried the whole drive over. "If you wake him up now, he's going to spend the next hour trying to make you feel better. He's 11. He shouldn't have that job." Her face broke then, all at once, and she covered it with one hand. Daniel watched her cry on his father's front walk and felt the pull he had always felt. The instinct to step forward, to soften it, to say something that would fix the night. He did not move. That was the first time he had ever chosen not to, and it was the strangest feeling of his adult life. Like setting down something heavy he had carried so long, he had stopped noticing the weight. "Go home, Jessica," he said. "Talk to your sister." She lifted her head. "And say what?" "That's the part you've never figured out." He went inside and shut the door. Through the window, he watched her stand there for a full minute before she walked back to her car. He watched the headlights swing across the yard and disappear down the street. In the garage, Ray was pretending to sort screws into a coffee can. "She gone?" "Yeah." Ray put the lid on the can. "Boy can have the back bedroom. I'll clear it Saturday." Daniel looked at his father. "It might be a while." Ray shrugged. "Then it's a while." Daniel stood in the doorway of the garage and looked at his hands. They were steady. He had expected them to shake, and they did not, and somehow that told him more about where this was going than anything Jessica had said. Daniel went home alone the next morning. He left Jerry at his father's house with a bowl of cereal and a promise to be back by noon. Ray was already in the back bedroom, pulling boxes off a bed frame that had not been used in a decade. The drive took 18 minutes. Daniel spent all of it deciding what he was not going to do. He was not going to shout. Shouting gave people something to repeat later. He was not going to threaten. Threats gave people something to record. He was not going to explain himself again, because explaining had been his entire strategy for 7 years, and it had produced a nursery in his son's bedroom. He parked in his own driveway behind Ashley's crooked sedan and sat there for a moment with the engine off. The house looked exactly the same from the outside. Gray siding, black shutters. The mailbox he had repainted in July. He had built the deck out back with his own hands the summer Jerry turned 6. He went in through the front door. The smell hit him first. Fresh paint, still. Under it, coffee. Ashley was in the kitchen. She sat at the island with one hand resting on the curve of her stomach and the other wrapped around a mug. Daniel recognized the mug immediately. Dark blue, chipped on the handle, with a faded logo from a hardware store that had closed years ago. It had been his father's. Ray had given it to him when Daniel bought his first house. She was drinking from it like it was nothing, like it was any cup in any kitchen. She looked up and smiled at him. "Morning. There's coffee." "I know. It's my coffee." Her smile flickered, then reset. "Where's Jerry?" "With my father." "Good." She turned on the stool to face him. "That's good. Gives us a chance to talk like adults." Daniel put his keys on the counter and stood across from her, the island between them. He did not sit. "Yes," he said. "We do need to talk. I think you're overreacting. You emptied my son's room. I gave him another room." She said it patiently, the way you correct a child's math. "The office is bigger than his room. It has better light. He'd probably like it more if you gave him 5 minutes to get used to it instead of dragging him out of the house at dinner time." "You sold his belongings." "Some old things, Daniel. You don't get to decide what's valuable to him." Ashley sighed and set the mug down. "Okay. You want the list? A twin bed he's going to outgrow in 2 years. A desk with a wobbly leg. Some paperbacks. A box of plastic trophies from a rec league where they give one to every kid who shows up. I got $90 for the whole lot, and I put every cent of it into that crib." Daniel felt his pulse in his throat. He kept his voice flat. "Where's the photograph?" "What photograph?" "Black frame. Wooden dock. My son and my father holding fishing poles." Ashley waved a hand. "That's in a box somewhere." Probably. Probably. It's a picture. He can print another one." "He can't. My father's camera broke that fall. That's the only copy that was ever printed." For 1 second, something moved across Ashley's face. Not guilt. Closer to inconvenience. The look of someone who has been handed a receipt they were not expecting. Then it was gone. "You're impossible," she said. "You know that? Jessica warned me you'd be like this." "Warned you?" "She said you'd make it into a whole thing." Daniel took that in, filed it away. It went somewhere cold and permanent. "No," he said. "I've been quiet for too long. That's all that's changed." Ashley got off the stool. She moved slowly, one hand at the small of her back, and she used the movement the way she used everything else. As an argument. As a shield. "You think you're some perfect husband." "No. Then stop acting like you're better than everyone in this family. I never said I was better. You've always looked down on me. Since the day I met you. The way you look at me when I ask Jess for anything, like I'm some dash. I look down on what you did to my family. Ashley's face changed. The performance dropped for a moment, and what was underneath it was much harder. You don't get to talk to me like that. Daniel put both hands flat on the counter. You stopped being entitled to my respect the day you started treating my son like an inconvenience. The kitchen went quiet. The refrigerator clicked on. He's a kid, Ashley said. Kids adapt. He's a kid who came home from a fishing trip and found out his family gave his room away while he was gone. He didn't get told. He wasn't asked. He opened a door, and it was already done. So it's the process you're upset about. It's all of it. You know what your problem is? Ashley's voice climbed. You keep score. 7 years you've been keeping score, and now you finally got the number you needed to throw me out. Congratulations. I kept score because nobody else was. My baby has a room. My son had one first. She slammed the mug down onto the counter. The handle cracked clean off and skidded across the granite. Coffee splashed across the tile. They both looked at it. Daniel looked at the broken handle for a long moment. Then he looked back up at her, and whatever she saw in his face made her take half a step backward. Your wife agrees with me, Ashley said. Daniel turned his head toward the hallway, toward the closed bedroom door at the end of it, toward the sound of a shower running that he had noticed the second he walked in. That's the problem, he said. He picked up the 2 pieces of his father's mug and set them on the windowsill above the sink. Then he got a towel and cleaned the coffee off his own floor, on his knees in silence, while his pregnant sister-in-law stood over him and told him he was being cruel. He did not answer her once. By the time he stood up, he knew exactly what was going to happen next. Not the details. The shape of it. The marriage was over. He had known it on his father's porch the night before, and he had spent all morning refusing to say the word. He said it to himself now, standing in his own kitchen with a wet towel in his hand. Over. Jessica came home that evening at 6:40. Daniel had spent the day at the storage unit Ashley had rented under Jessica's name. He had gotten the gate code from a text on the counter and found 6 boxes stacked in the back corner of a 5x5 space, badly taped, none of them labeled. The photograph was not in any of them. He had brought the boxes home and stacked them in the garage. Then he had sat on the tailgate of his truck for a while with the garage door open and the daylight going orange. He was still out there when Jessica pulled in. She got out of the car. She saw the boxes. She saw his face. The argument started before she reached him. You embarrass my sister. Daniel did not get up. She emptied our son's bedroom. She made a mistake. You keep calling everything she does a mistake. Because you're always attacking her. Jessica's voice bounced off the garage walls. Do you know what she was like when I got home? She was shaking. She thought you were going to put her out on the street. I cleaned up the coffee she spilled, and I didn't say another word to her. She said you threatened her. I asked her where a photograph was. Jessica stopped. Some of the momentum went out of her. What photograph? Daniel looked at her. He watched her remember. He watched it land. Oh, she said. Yeah, it's probably Dash. It's not in the boxes. I went through all 6. Twice. Jessica put a hand over her mouth. Maybe it's still in the house. In a drawer somewhere. Maybe. Daniel Dash, I've tried talking, he said. Do you understand that? For 7 years I've tried talking. I sat down with her. I sat down with you. I asked for 3 rules. 3. And every one of them got thrown out the second she cried on the phone. You yelled at her today. I never raised my voice. That's not what she said. I know it's not. He slid off the tailgate and stood. That's the part you should be thinking about. Jessica shook her head hard, like she could shake the thought out. You're supposed to be her family. Daniel laughed, and there was nothing warm in it. I was her family when she needed money. 11 times, at least, that I know about. I was her family when she needed somewhere to sleep for 5 weeks, and I gave up my den and never said a word. I was her family when her boyfriend left, and she needed somebody to watch her kids on a Tuesday, and I took a half day off work. Daniel Dash. I was her family when she took our second car for a weekend and brought it back a month later with a cracked mirror. I paid for that mirror. Did you know that? I never told you, because I didn't want the fight. Jessica's eyes were wet. But the second my son needed his own bedroom, Daniel said. I'm the selfish one in this house. She started crying then. Not the controlled kind. The kind that bends a person forward. You don't understand what I'm dealing with. Daniel felt it. The old pull. 12 years of marriage does not evaporate in 2 days. And the sound of his wife crying in the garage still reached something in him. His voice softened. Not much. Enough. Then tell me. Jessica looked up. What? Tell me. Right now. What are you dealing with? Say it out loud, and I'll listen to every word without interrupting once. She opened her mouth. Nothing came. He waited. He gave her all the room in the world. The light in the driveway went from orange to gray. Somewhere down the street a car door shut, and an engine started. It's complicated, Jessica said finally. That's not an answer. She's my sister. That's not an answer either. That's a wall you put up so you never have to look at what's behind it. You want me to say she's selfish? Jessica wiped her face with both hands. Is that it? You want me to say my sister is a selfish person who uses me? Fine. Is that what you want to hear? No, Daniel said. I wanted you to say it 7 years ago. Now it's just a sentence. Jessica stared at him. That's what I've been asking for, he said. Every time. Not for you to hate her. Just for you to see her clearly one time and pick a side that wasn't hers. Don't make me choose. I never did. That's the part that kills me. He shut the tailgate. The sound cracked through the garage. I never once asked you to cut her off. I asked for rules. And you couldn't hold a single one, because holding it would have meant one bad phone call with Ashley, and you'd rather have a bad marriage than a bad phone call. Jessica put her hand on the truck to steady herself. Where's Jerry? My father's. When is he coming home? Daniel looked at the 6 boxes stacked against the wall. 6 boxes. 11 years of a boy's life. Taped shut by someone who had valued it at $90. When there's a home to come back to, he said. He walked past her into the house. Behind him, he heard her say his name once. He did not turn around. He gave it 4 days. Not because he was hoping, because he wanted the record to be clean. 4 days in which he told Jessica exactly what needed to happen. In plain words, more than once with no ultimatum and no anger. Ashley did not move. Nothing came out of that room. The crib stayed. The yellow paint stayed. On Saturday morning, Daniel found Jessica in the kitchen and said it directly. Ashley can't live here anymore. Jessica turned from the sink. She's pregnant. She can stay with your parents. They don't have the space. They have a 3-bedroom house, and one of those rooms is a sewing room. Mom uses that room. Then she can find another arrangement. She has a month before the baby comes. That's enough time to find somewhere. Jessica's face went pale. You would throw my pregnant sister out. I would ask her to leave my home. Our home. Daniel nodded once. Our marital home. Which means half of it is mine, and I'm telling you that the half that's mine is not available to her anymore. Jessica gripped the counter behind her. I can't do that to her. Then I will. Daniel Dash, I'm not threatening you. I'm not going to scream at you. I'm not going to take anything from you. He kept his voice completely level. I'm telling you the truth. I can't live like this anymore. That's it. That's the whole thing. She said nothing. He waited a full minute, and when it was clear that she was not going to move, he walked down the hall and knocked on the door of what used to be his son's bedroom. Ashley opened it. She had a bag of laundry in one hand. You have until Wednesday, Daniel said. She blinked at him. Excuse me? Wednesday morning. That gives you 4 days. I'll help you load your car, and I'll pay for the first month wherever you land, and I will personally drive the crib anywhere you want it to go. Ashley's mouth opened. You can't throw me out. You've had months of chances. You've had 7 years of them. I have nowhere to go. You have parents 20 minutes from here. They don't want me. Then that's a conversation for you and them. Your wife is my family. She was shouting now, high and ragged, her free hand shaking. You don't get to decide this. Jess. Jessica came down the hall fast. Daniel did not raise his voice. Then Jessica can help you, he said. She can find you a place. She can drive you there. She can pay the deposit. I won't say a word about any of it. But she can't do it in my house. Jessica stepped between them, both hands up. Daniel, stop. No. She froze. It was one syllable. He had never used it on her like that in 12 years. Not once. Every argument they had ever had, he had eventually found a way to bend, to compromise, to hand her something so the night could end. "No more," he said. Ashley started crying. It was the loud kind, the kind that filled a hallway and made a person want to fix it just to make it stop. Daniel walked past both of them, down the hall, and opened the front door. Cold air came in. The morning was bright and clear. A neighbor 2 houses down was running a leaf blower. "That's cruel," Jessica said behind him. Her voice was shaking. "She's 7 months pregnant, and you're standing there holding the door open like she's a stranger. I am not asking either of you to agree with me." He turned around and looked at his wife. "I'm telling you that this arrangement is over." They stood there, the three of them, in a hallway with an open door and cold air coming through it. Ashley broke first. She went into the bedroom and came out 4 minutes later with 2 bags in her purse, still crying, saying things Daniel let pass through him without landing. He carried the bags to her car because he had said he would. He put them in the trunk. He shut it. She got in and slammed the door and sat there for a moment with her hands on the wheel. Then Jessica came out of the house with her own bag over her shoulder. She stopped on the walk and looked at him. "I'm going with her." "I know." "That's it? That's all you have to say?" Daniel looked at his wife, standing in the driveway of the house they had bought together, choosing, out loud, in daylight, the way she had chosen 100 quieter times. "Drive safe," he said. Both cars pulled out. Ashley's sedan first, then Jessica's, and the sound of them faded down the street until there was nothing but the leaf blower 2 houses away. Daniel went back inside. He closed the door and stood in the entryway. The house was quiet. Not the tense quiet he had lived in for years, the kind where you brace for the next thing. Real quiet. Empty rooms and a refrigerator humming and a clock ticking in the living room that he had honestly forgotten made noise. He walked through it slowly. The kitchen, the living room, the hallway. He stopped at the door of Jerry's room and looked at the crib and the yellow walls and the little gray elephants turning in the vent air. Then he went to the garage, got a screwdriver, and started taking the crib apart. It took him 40 minutes. He stacked the pieces neatly in the corner of the garage, every screw in a labeled bag, nothing damaged. He would deliver it wherever she wanted it. He had said he would. Then he went to the hardware store and bought 2 gallons of blue paint. Jessica stayed away for 5 nights. Daniel used them. He painted the room himself, 2 coats, working late with the windows open and a portable radio on the floor. He put the bed frame back together from the box Ashley had not managed to sell. He bought a desk, not a fancy one, a solid one, with drawers that closed all the way and no wobble in the legs. Jerry came home on the 4th night. He stood in the doorway of his room and did not say anything for a long moment. "It's the same blue," he said. "I matched it at the store." Jerry walked in and touched the desk. Then he looked at the wall above it, at the nail still sitting in the drywall. Neither of them said anything about that. On the 5th night, after Jerry was asleep, headlights came up the driveway. Jessica let herself in with her key. She stood in the kitchen with her coat still on. "We need to talk." Daniel nodded and sat down at the table. She took the chair across from him. She looked thinner. There were shadows under her eyes that makeup had not covered. "She's at my parents'," Jessica said. "Mom cleared the sewing room." "Good. You were right about that." She laughed, one bitter breath. "You were right about the room, anyway." Daniel waited. Jessica put her hands flat on the table. "I don't want a divorce." He looked at her for a long moment. "I didn't want one either." "Then don't do this." Her voice broke on it. "Please. We can go to counseling. We could do whatever you want. I'll set the rules myself. I'll write them down. I didn't decide this because of one fight. It was 1 week, Daniel. 1 bad week." "No." He shook his head slowly. "It was 7 years, and this week is just when I finally looked at the total." She was crying again, quietly this time. "I can change." He believed her. That was the part that made it hard. She was not lying. She wanted, right now, tonight, sitting in this kitchen, to be a different person. But wanting to change and changing were 2 different things, and he had spent 7 years mistaking one for the other. "You had years," he said. "I know. I asked you to protect Jerry. Not from anything dangerous. Just from being made small in his own house. I know. I asked you for boundaries. 3 rules. I asked you to hold one. I know, Daniel. Every time, you chose keeping the peace with Ashley over protecting this family. And you didn't do it because you're cruel. I know you're not cruel. He leaned forward. You did it because standing up to her felt harder than letting me absorb it. And I let you believe I could absorb it forever. So that part's on me. Jessica lowered her head. Her shoulders shook. I keep waiting for you to yell, she said. I wish you would. Why? Because when you yell, it means you still care how it goes. Daniel sat with that. I care how it goes for Jerry, he said. That hasn't changed, and it won't. But not for us. No. The word came out flat and clean, and it was the truest thing he had said in a decade. Jessica wiped her face. Is there someone else? No. Then why can't we dash? Because I can't keep teaching my son that love means putting up with disrespect. Daniel's voice stayed steady. That's what he's been watching. 11 years of watching his father take it. He's already started doing it, Jess. He apologized to me in the truck. That night. He was worried you were mad at him. Jessica put both hands over her face. He thought it was his fault, Daniel said. That's what we built. She sat there and cried into her hands, and he did not reach across the table. After a while, she stood up, pulled her coat tighter, and went to the door. She stopped there with her hand on the frame. You already called someone, didn't you? Not yet. But you're going to? Yes. Jessica nodded without turning around. Then she left. Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table for a long time. The clock in the living room ticked. The heater came on and shut off. At 11:40 that night, he opened his laptop and searched for family law attorneys within 20 miles. He read reviews for an hour. He wrote 3 names on a piece of paper. He did not send a threatening message to his wife. He did not empty the joint account. He did not call her parents to make his case, or post anything, or tell a single person at work. He wrote 3 names on a piece of paper and went to bed. In the morning, he called the first one. The divorce was far less dramatic than the family arguments had been. Nobody screamed in a courtroom. Nobody stood up and made a speech. What actually happened was paperwork. Financial disclosures. Bank statements going back 3 years. Retirement account balances. Mortgage documents. A parenting plan template with blank lines for pickup times. Temporary orders about who stayed in the house and who paid which bill while the case moved. Daniel's attorney was a woman named Priya Rao, 40-something, direct, with a small office above a bakery and a habit of tapping her pen twice before she said anything important. She tapped it twice at their first meeting. What's your goal here? And I don't mean what you're feeling. I mean, what do you want when this is finished? Stability for my son. That's a value. Give me a schedule. So he gave her one. School nights at his house. Because Jerry's school was 8 minutes from the home Daniel intended to keep or replace within the same district. His baseball practice was Tuesday and Thursday at a field 2 blocks from that school. His best friend lived on the next street. Everything in the boy's life radiated out from that one small circle. And his mother? Weekends. Real ones, not scraps. Plus a weeknight dinner. Plus half of every school break. Priya looked up from her notes. That's more than you have to offer. It's what he needs. You understand I could push for more. I understand. She tapped the pen twice. Most men in that chair tell me they want to bury their wife. I'm not most men in that chair. Daniel had kept records. Not out of some plan for revenge. Because once lawyers get involved, memory stops counting for anything. He had photographs of the emptied room, taken the same night on his phone, time-stamped. He had the storage unit receipt with Jessica's name on it. He had the text messages where Jessica had told him about the gate code. He had 7 years of bank transfers, every one of them documented, sitting in a folder he had started keeping 2 years earlier and never told anyone about. Priya went through the folder in silence for 10 minutes. You've been building this a while. I've been protecting myself a while. There's a difference. The first hearing was on a Thursday morning in December. The courthouse hallway was crowded and cold and smelled like wet coats. Jessica sat on a bench with her attorney, a heavy-set man with a briefcase that would not close. She wore a gray dress Daniel had bought her 4 Christmases ago. She looked at him once. He nodded. That was all. Inside, it took 19 minutes. Temporary orders. Schedule confirmed as agreed. Next date set. Afterward, in a small conference room, Jessica's attorney asked Daniel a series of questions with a recorder on the table. Mr. Mercer, can you describe your relationship with your wife's family? Strained. Can you be more specific? Daniel could have opened the folder. He could have listed every dollar, every week, every comment made at his table in front of his kid. He did not. Her sister lived in our home on and off for years. It caused problems. In October, my son's bedroom was emptied and repurposed without my knowledge while he and I were out of town. Some of his belongings were sold. And you removed your son from the home. I took him to my father's house for 4 nights. Then I brought him back. You also removed Ms. Dawson from the residence. I asked her to leave. I gave her 4 days, I helped carry her bags, and I offered to pay her first month somewhere else. That offer stands, actually. The attorney glanced up. It stands. She's about to have a baby. I don't want her sleeping in a car. I want her out of my house. Those are 2 different things. There was a pause. The recorder hummed. Mr. Mercer, what is it you want from this case? A stable home for my son. And your wife. I want her to have a healthy relationship with Jerry. He needs his mother. That's not in question, and I won't let it become one. The attorney sat back a little. Even after everything that happened, Daniel thought about it. He let the question sit. I don't need to destroy Jessica to protect my son, he said. He did not know it then, but that sentence would matter more than anything else said in that room. It went into the record. It went into a report. Months later, a mediator would read it out loud in a very different room, and it would decide something important. Ashley had her baby in January. A girl, 6 pounds 4 ounces, born at 4 in the morning at the same hospital where Jerry had been born. She was not a party to the divorce case. She had no legal standing in any of it. That did not stop her from working it. She started the week Jessica moved into a rented duplex on the east side of town. She came over with the baby and stayed for hours, and Daniel knew about all of it because Jerry told him. Not to tattle, because he was 11 and had nobody else to sort it out with. Aunt Ashley says you're controlling. Daniel was at the stove, making eggs on a Sunday morning. What do you think? Jerry considered it seriously. I think you make me do my homework before video games. That's true. That's not controlling. That's homework. Daniel smiled at the pan. The next weekend, Jerry came home quieter. She said, you're trying to take me away from Mom. Daniel turned the burner off and sat down across from his son. How many days a month do you see your mom? Jerry counted on his fingers. 8, 9 with dinners. Is that me taking you away from her? No. If you wanted more, would you tell me? Jerry hesitated. Would you get mad? And there it was. The thing Daniel had been watching for. No, he said. I would call your mother, and we would figure it out. You will never lose anything in this house for asking me an honest question. Not now. Not when you're 16. Not ever. Jerry nodded slowly. Something in his shoulders came down. What Daniel did not see, because he was not there, was the conversation happening in the duplex on the east side. He learned about it much later in pieces from Jessica. Ashley had been pushing for weeks. She had a theory, and she repeated it constantly. Daniel was punishing Jessica. Daniel was using the boy as leverage. Daniel had always been waiting for an excuse. If you let him win, Ashley told her sister, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Jessica had been holding a bottle. The baby was asleep on her shoulder. And somewhere in the middle of that sentence, something occurred to her that had never occurred to her before. Ashley had apologized to her. Repeatedly, she had apologized for causing stress, for the timing, for making things hard between Jessica and Daniel. She had never once apologized to Jerry. Not the night it happened. Not in the weeks after. Not at Christmas, when the boy had come to their parents' house and sat quietly at the far end of the table. Jessica put the bottle down. You hurt my son. Ashley looked up. Don't start. Say it. Say you hurt him. I didn't mean to. That's not an apology. What do you want from me? Ashley's voice went sharp. I was 7 months pregnant with no money and no place to go. I did what I had to do. You sold his grandfather's picture. I don't know where that picture is. You sold his bed while he was at a lake with his father. Jessica was shaking. He was 11 years old, and he opened a door, and everything he owned was gone. Ashley stared at her. I spent 7 years defending you, Jessica said. 7 years. I told my husband he was overreacting. I told him he was cold. I thought I was protecting my family. You were. No. I was tearing up my own marriage to keep you comfortable, and I told myself that was loyalty. Ashley shifted the baby in her arms and used the movement, the way she used everything. So you're choosing Daniel over me? Jessica answered quietly. No. Then what? I'm finally choosing my son. Ashley left that night. She did not come back for 3 months. Jessica told Daniel about the conversation 2 weeks later, standing in his driveway during a pickup with Jerry already buckled in the car. Daniel listened to all of it without interrupting. When she finished, she looked at him with something almost hopeful in her face. I thought you should know. Thank you for telling me. He said it plainly. He meant it plainly. And that was all he said. Jessica waited a moment for more. More did not come. She got in the car and drove her son to her house for the weekend. The final agreement was not a victory speech. It was 11 pages of ordinary language, signed in a mediator's office in March, with a copier humming in the next room. Shared legal custody. Both parents involved in medical decisions, school decisions, activities. Neither one able to move Jerry out of the school district without written agreement. Jerry would spend school nights primarily at Daniel's house. Not because a judge decided Jessica was a bad mother. Because the school was 8 minutes away, the baseball field was 2 blocks from the school, and the boy's entire life had been built inside that circle. Jessica got every other weekend from Friday afternoon to Sunday evening, plus 1 weeknight dinner, plus alternating holidays, plus 4 weeks in the summer. Neither parent was permitted to discuss the litigation with Jerry or to have another adult do it for them. That clause was Priya's. She had drafted it after reading Daniel's notes about Ashley. The mediator read the file before the session. At one point, she looked up over her glasses at both of them. Mr. Mercer, in your deposition you were asked what you wanted. You said you wanted your wife to have a healthy relationship with your son. Do you stand by that? Yes. Even now. He gets one mother. That's not something I get to take from him because I'm angry. Jessica's head came up sharply. She looked at him across the table with an expression he could not read. The mediator wrote something down. That's a rarer answer than you'd think, she said. The court did not punish Ashley. Ashley was never named in the final order. She was not fined, not sanctioned, not required to repay $90 for a boy's furniture. That is not what family court is for. The court did not punish Jessica for the bedroom, either. Nobody stood up and read her a lecture. There was no dramatic moment where a judge looked down and said the words Daniel had imagined in the worst hours of that first week. Instead, Daniel got something better. He got a signed, enforceable document that said his son's life could not be rearranged again by anyone's crisis. That was the entire point. That was what he had actually been fighting for since the moment he stood in that hallway. The divorce was finalized in May, 7 months after the fishing trip. Daniel had expected to feel something big. He had braced for it. He signed the last page with a pen borrowed from a clerk in a room with beige walls and a window that looked out at a parking garage. He did not feel victorious. He felt the way a man feels when he finally sets down a bag he has been carrying up a hill for years. Not happy, just lighter and a little unsteady, and aware for the first time of how much it had weighed. Jessica was waiting outside on the courthouse steps. It was warm, the kind of May morning where the air smells like cut grass and everything is too bright. Traffic moved past on the street below. A man on the corner was selling flowers out of white buckets. Daniel. He stopped. She looked different. Not physically. She had lost weight and cut her hair, but that was not it. Something in her face had changed. Something had been taken out and not replaced. I know you don't want to hear this, she said. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Daniel nodded once. I know. I should have protected Jerry. Yes. She flinched. She had expected softness. He had none to give her, and he did not manufacture any. I should have listened to you, she said. Years ago. The first time you sat me down? Yes. Jessica looked out at the street. I lost my marriage because I spent all my time trying to keep everybody else happy. I keep going over it. Every choice. And the strange thing is that I can't find the one big moment where I ruined it. It's just 100 small ones. That's usually how it works. She turned back to him, and her eyes were wet. Do you hate me? No. She looked genuinely surprised. I don't hate you, he said. I stopped being angry a while ago. That's not the same as anything else. Then why can't we try again? Daniel had known the question was coming. He had known it since she said his name on the steps. He shook his head. Because forgiveness doesn't mean rebuilding the same house after it's already collapsed. Jessica pressed her lips together hard. I can be different now. I proved it. I told her the truth. I chose him. You did. And I'm glad, because he needed his mother to do that. Daniel kept his voice even. But you did it in February. I needed it in year 2. Or year 4. Or the night I told you I felt married to your sister. That's not fair. No, he agreed. It isn't. Nothing about this has been fair to anybody, including you. That doesn't change what it is. Jessica wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. So that's it. That's it. She nodded slowly, and he watched her finally understand it, all the way down, in a way she had not on any of the nights she had cried in his kitchen. There would be no reunion, no second chance, no dramatic scene where he took her back and the family healed, and everyone learned something. Their marriage was over, and it had been over for months, and the papers had only made it official. But Daniel did not want Jerry to lose his mother. He had said that in a deposition, and he had said it to a mediator, and now he said it standing on the steps to the woman herself. He's got a game on Saturday, Daniel said. 1 o'clock. He's pitching. Jessica looked up. I'll be there. Sit wherever you want. He'd like it if you sat with my dad. He gets a kick out of that. Her face did something complicated. Thank you. Daniel walked down the steps and did not look back. That was the difference between revenge and consequences. Revenge would have been keeping the boy from her. Revenge would have been the folder, page by page, in front of a judge. Revenge would have been making Jessica pay for 7 years in one afternoon. Consequences were quieter and much heavier. She had lost her marriage and her house and the version of her family she had spent a decade protecting, and none of it had been done to her. She had done all of it herself, one small choice at a time, and she was going to live inside that for the rest of her life. Daniel got in his truck and drove to work. Daniel bought a smaller house in July, 11 minutes from the old one, same school district, 3 bedrooms and a garage that leaked. It cost less than half of what the old house had been worth. He took the smaller mortgage on purpose. He wanted margin. He wanted the kind of life where nobody could ever again tell him what he had to absorb because he could not afford to say no. Moving day was 94 degrees. Ray came with his truck. Jerry carried boxes with both arms wrapped around them and refused all offers of help. They spent the whole first Saturday on Jerry's room. Daniel had let him pick everything. The paint was a deeper blue than before, almost navy, and Jerry had chosen it out of 30 samples over the course of a week. They painted it together with the windows open and a fan running and a radio on the floor. Jerry put the recovered trophies on a shelf above the desk. There were 9 of them. 2 had been sold and never came back. He arranged the 9 carefully, spacing them out so the gaps did not show, and Daniel watched him do it and said nothing. Then Jerry took something out of a shoebox. It was the photograph. Daniel had found it in April, in a box of Jessica's kitchen things she had asked him to drop off at the duplex. It had been at the bottom, under a stack of dish towels, still in its black frame with a crack running through one corner of the glass. Jessica had cried when he showed it to her. She had said she did not know how it got there. Daniel believed her. Ashley had packed in a hurry and thrown things into whatever was closest. He had replaced the glass and said nothing to Jerry until the day they moved. Jerry hung it above the desk himself. He measured twice. He used a level. He got it crooked anyway by a degree or 2 and left it. Then he stepped back and looked at the room. It was not a big room. The closet door stuck. The carpet was older than he was. I like this one better, Jerry said. Daniel smiled. Me too. Jerry sat down on the edge of the bed, and Daniel could tell a question was coming by the way he studied the floor. Are Mom and Aunt Ashley still fighting? That's between them. Mom doesn't talk about her anymore. I know. Jerry picked at a thread on the comforter. Are you angry? Daniel thought about the question honestly, because his son deserved an honest answer and had been given too many careful ones in his life. I was, he said, for a long time, longer than I let anybody see. Are you now? Daniel looked around the room. The 9 trophies. The crooked picture. The blue his son had picked out himself over the course of a week because for the first time in his life somebody had told him the choice was entirely his. Not anymore, he said. Jerry nodded, satisfied, and the weight went out of the moment as fast as it had come. Can we go fishing Saturday? Daniel laughed. Absolutely. A year after the bedroom, they drove back to the lake. The same lake, the same gravel road, the same bait shop with the hand-painted sign, the same turn where the trees opened up and the water appeared all at once. They got there before sunrise. The air was cold enough to see their breath. Fog sat low on the surface, thick and unmoving, and the only sound was water against the rocks and a loon somewhere out past the point. Jerry was 12 now, taller. He carried his own gear without being asked and baited his own hook without complaining. They sat on the flat rocks by the shore. Jerry cast first, a decent cast, better than last year. Daniel watched the bobbers settle into the gray water. His life looked nothing like it had 2 years ago. He was divorced. He lived in a smaller house with a garage that leaked and a mortgage that would be paid off 11 years earlier than the old one. He owned less furniture than he had at 30. He had spent 7 months and a considerable amount of money in courthouses and conference rooms. He had lost people he had once called family and would never speak to again. By every measure people usually use, he had less. But he had something he had almost stopped believing was available to him. Peace. Not the fake kind. Not the kind he used to buy by staying quiet. The real kind. The kind where a man walks into his own kitchen and nothing is waiting for him. His phone buzzed in his jacket pocket. He took it out. A message from Jessica. Jerry's birthday is next weekend. Can we celebrate together? Daniel looked at the screen for a while. The fog moved. Somewhere behind them a car door shut in the parking area. He typed 4 words. Yes. For Jerry. He put the phone away and did not look at it again. There was nothing complicated in that message and nothing hopeful. They co-parented well now, better than most divorced people he knew, and they would probably keep doing it for another 6 years without ever being friends. Jessica had a small apartment and a new job, and she showed up to every game. She had never asked to try again after that day on the courthouse steps. She had understood, finally, that the door was closed. Ashley had moved 2 states away in the fall. Daniel had never received an apology from her and had stopped expecting one somewhere around the 2nd month. He did not need it. An apology from Ashley would have been another performance, and he had watched enough of those to last a life. He looked at his son. Jerry was watching the water, completely still, the way you learn to be still only if somebody teaches you patiently over several years. Dad. Yeah, I think I got one. Daniel sat up. The rod tip bent. The line cut sideways through the fog. Reel it in. Keep the tip up. Don't rush it. Jerry pulled. The fish fought hard, running once toward the deep water and then turning, and the boy laughed out loud, a wild, delighted sound that carried across the flat surface of the lake. Daniel got the net. Together they brought it in, a largemouth, bigger than the one last year, thick through the middle, throwing water everywhere as it came over the rocks. Jerry was grinning so wide it looked like it hurt. Get a picture. Dad, get a picture. Daniel took 11 of them. Later, driving home with wet sleeves and the cooler in the back and his son asleep against the seat belt exactly the way he had been a year ago, Daniel understood something he had been circling for months. He had not won because his wife had lost. He had not won because Ashley had been put out of his house. He had not won because a judge signed a piece of paper in a beige room. He had won because his son had stopped asking whether he belonged. That was the whole thing. That was all of it. A boy who no longer looked at a door before opening it. A boy who left a picture crooked on the wall because it was his wall and he could. The family Daniel had spent 7 years trying to save was gone, and it was not coming back, and he would not have taken it back if it had been offered. But the family he still had, the one sitting next to him with lake water drying on his jacket, was finally safe. Daniel drove east into the sun with both hands on the wheel and did not think about the past a single time.